welcome back to Identity Insights by Indicio. Today I am joined by Hemant Sahoo, head of Indicio's India operations, and Ajay Srivastava, who's an Indicio investor and is helping to grow decentralized identity in India as well. Thank you both for taking the time to join us today. Would you mind starting us off with a little bit about yourself?
Hi, thanks Tim for the introduction. My name is Hemant Sahoo. I came to know about Indicio through Ajay Srivastava. He's a very old friend of mine. And I know he's a very dynamic investor. So I know whenever he invests something, it has to be good. So then he was the person who told me about Indicio and dynamics and the future of Indicio in how the world is going to interact with itself in the digital world. And when I heard Ajay about it, the way he explained it to me, I knew, yes, this technology is the technology. If not today, but for tomorrow, it is there and it will keep growing. So then, with his support and help, I thought let's try our best to make this technology available to maximum number of people in India so people can benefit. I'm using the word benefit because it is actually beneficial. So thank you. So I'm thankful to Ajay and to the entire management of Indicio to give me the responsibility to take care of business development and other activities in order to promote Indicio's technology products and solutions in India. Thank you.
My name is Ajay Srivastava. I have a business in US, but I'm also an investor into Indicio, a very dynamic technology. I think the technology is just beginning to roll out. Within the next 3 years, I assume and hope the technology is going to take over. As you can probably imagine, OTP took over the market, two-factor authentication and multi-factor authentication took over the market about 7 or 10 years back. This is not going to be so long this time, and password-less login is going to be a reality in the next 3 to 5 years. I am interested in India markets to help Indicio open up India markets and have a good network of business and personal colleagues or friends. And I think this is a good opportunity to help Indicio get into India.
All right, awesome. Well, yeah, definitely appreciate you both taking the time to speak to me today. So, right, obviously you're growing the business in India. I'm curious, what kind of customers have you been talking to?
Okay. We first tried to understand which company, government department, public sector, or private sector should be using this technology. So now everyone is part of the digital ecosystem. So what was missing was the security and identity layer. People interact with each other, but without knowing that based on assumption, just like I just said, OTP was introduced as a second factor authentication to know the person who's interacting in the first place through a username or an email or through a password, whether he's the right person or not. Because the individual who was interacting with the bank system did not have any kind of system to verify. So they started assuming and then they introduced OTP and other multi-factor authentication. As reports say, username, password, and OTP has been vulnerable to frauds all over the world, to thefts, and and there's been a huge loss. In India, there has been a loss of about $64 billion in the last decade, mostly taking place on account of internet banking and misuse fraud of credit card and debit cards. So then we had an internal discussion with Ajay and our team here in India. We said banks could be the most, what do you say, important use case. So we started approaching banks. And even RBI also has been talking to replace OTP as a technology to do the second factor authentication. So now a lot of banks, we are at the discussion level, so I'm not disclosing the name, but yes, we have interacted. They interacted with the technical team of Indicio, and we have been talking to RBI also to make them understand the technology. Yes, banks, and secondly, a lot of frauds take place in the land records side.
Okay.
So Ajay was here in India about 3-4 months. He happened to meet the top government of a particular government, the chief minister and the chief secretary level, and he was able to convince them to transform their land record. They said the digital land record, but it is not secure to verifiable land records. So that also is in the final stage of having an agreement kind of thing. And this, we are also talking to other state governments about converting the entire land record, rather enhancing and making it more secure as land credential. Similarly, we are talking to universities, and also we have been interacting in a very big way with the blockchain influencers in India who talks about the technology in the respective field wherever they go in seminars. And so we have been reaching out to government, to banks, to universities, and to large corporations where they can use our technology for employees' access to their applications and databases. A lot of fraud takes place, and also to make the lives more simpler and comfortable, because an employee has to remember so many passwords to enter into different applications. Like in a bank, there are 100 applications for which they have to use. So it's very cumbersome. We have interacted with the bank employees. So we are trying to provide them this technology with the support of the technical team of Indicio.
All right. Awesome. No, that sounds like quite a few different customers and use cases there. Do you have anything to add to that, Ajay?
I just say that the low-hanging fruits, just in terms of applicability and be able to avoid the fraud and the problems associated problems, are either the government, whether it's central government of India or it's the state government. And the second market is the financial institutions. Like Hemant said, $64 billion over 10 years, that's about $6 billion a year is being taken away. Second one is the Indian central government. So Aadhaar card has had multiple frauds cases. Either internal employees are leaking the information, or people are using even biometrics and some other ways to steal or duplicate Aadhaar card and other identity cards at the state government levels. People are transferring land records from a person to their names without the knowledge of the other person. So it's a very fraud prone. Those two markets are extremely fraud prone. Also, the benefits given by the government not necessarily reach the individuals who really deserve those. So the biggest bang for the buck, or the return on investment, is going to be if either the financial institutions, which includes the banks, or the governments at the state and the government at the central level, start to implement verified credentials technology, because this is immutable and it prevents all kinds of fraud. And so we are targeting those two markets. As Hemant said, one of our channel partners group is going to be people who are involved in verified credentials within India, and then who have good contact lists within the financial as well as the government network.
All right. You touched on some very interesting problems there, specifically for India, it sounds like, particularly the land records. I'm curious, how does that fraud currently happen if you know that someone transfers, someone else's property into their name illegally, and how would verifiable credentials stop that from happening? If you could go into that a little bit more detail.
Well, like in India, they have a revenue department in every state of India. So the revenue department has this their responsibility to take care of the land records. So the land, if it belongs to a village, it starts at the lower level, tehsildar, but ultimately the records are kept in a record room. So this used to be in a paper format, but now state governments have made it digital. But digital means it's not secure. They have just converted the paper into a digital and put it on a website called Bhulek. So you go and see, okay. But there is no way to stop people who wants to do some fraud to go and change it at the paper level and again make the change at the internet level, at the website level. This is what is happening in connivance of people from the record room or the employee side from the government and some property middlemen and some lawyers also, they get involved. This we get to hear like in the state of Haryana, in state of other states also. They come to know when the person who actually is the owner complains. Then they go back and try to find out. So in order to stop that, we have approached them, but rather we told them about this technology. Once a land record is in the name of a genuine person, it cannot be changed, it is immutable, it cannot be tampered without the knowledge of the holder, the genuine holder. And then this technology is also dynamic and wherein other benefits like mortgaging the land, it can be verified from banks, the legal department, by the buyer, whosoever is interested. So that fraud of duplicating the land is diminished totally.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, do you have anything to add to that, Ajay, before we move on?
No, I guess, that's what Hemant describes is a good way to stop the fraud. Now, what we have detailed out for the chief minister and the chief secretary the other day was, let's say there are three brothers who sign in the government portal. They are able to make a transaction with the seller online, and the revenue department at the same time makes the change of the land record from the seller to the buyer, and the bank is right there who takes the money from the seller and distributes it or deposits it with the buyers, right? And so, there is a three-way transaction. If there is a fourth party, which could be a real estate agent, they come into play and they record their revenues as the transaction is going on. And it cannot be a fraudulent transaction because everybody is on board and it's secure from the perspective that the seller is really selling and the buyer is really buying, right? And they are both authenticated by the verifiable credentials. So this is going to be a very smooth transaction, a huge process change for the government, and a huge return on investment, and the efficiency factor increases as well. It cuts down the processing time for registration of the land records.
No, absolutely. That sounds like a way smoother way of doing things, of having everyone in the same room and ready to to make it happen. Have you faced any challenges when trying to describe the technology to potential customers?
So
Not
right now,
really. Yeah, Ajay.
so right now, so India is advanced in information technology. However, some of the more recent and forward-leaning and emerging technologies have not really penetrated India. A lot of times here, what we have experienced is people at very senior level do not really understand what is verifiable credentials and how it works. For them, digitization is secure. If you just digitize, store it in the computer, and make sure network and the laptop and the computers are safe, that's good enough, right? As you must have seen today's news item that millions of records of the Indian citizens were being taken away by the fraudsters, right? It's a news item. Today is April 3rd, and it's a big news item in all the major newspapers across the world, right? So not knowing the senior officers who are at the head level or at the technocrats and bureaucrats both, are not yet open to what these technologies are and what can be done to help prevent these kind of frauds, right? Till the time we educate them, it takes us to move a mountain. By the time it takes 3 to 6 months just to educate them on what the technology is and how will it change. And then they get lost into, okay, then how do we have to change the regulations and what has to happen? And so, it gets a little bit confusing. So it's taking little time, but I am sure as soon as the senior folks are aware of the technology, the large return on investment, the huge efficiency and cost-cutting factor, and that it does not verifiable credentials implementation does not necessarily intervene with any of their existing systems, then we have a few implementations under our belt as in examples within India, because we are asked many times, what are the implementations in India, right? So once that is done, then I think it will be a very fast moving train forward. Once we have a few past performances here, a few experiences, then moving forward, it will be very fast, because when India adopts, it really adopts very quickly.
Yeah, I'd like, basically it's a mindset issue here in India. People do not try to adapt change very easily. They like to stay in a comfort zone. For example, we have been talking to technical people also, or very, very large organizations, very qualified people, but they still feel decentralization means it is not secured, means the data is out of their control, which is totally wrong. They feel, having a central database in a server means it is under the control, but they do not understand that if a hacker enters, like in the ICMR server about 6 months back, he was able to hack or steal 883 million COVID records and Aadhaar records. Similarly, the news article which Ajay was mentioning, which came today, is about the central servers being hacked. And they come to know later on. It's not that someone, the system is not so robust. So making them understand decentralization does not mean that data is going out of hand. It is still in your control, but you are more secure. So yes, but now people will open up. When you stretch a rubber band, you need to stretch till the time it breaks. So we are still stretching it now. But the time will come, it will break, and then the change takes place.
All right.
And another thing, yes, people are opening up with large contract. Like I said, we go through RFP, so we need to have understanding with, the government agencies, like, the technical, like we call them public sector undertakings. So we are also looking at that opportunity also, because we are new here. So there are certain eligibility criteria with the public sector undertaking. A big public sector undertaking fulfills all those, and it become easier for a government client to interact with the public sector organization, and we will be the technology provider with them. So we are working on that dimension also.
All right. So with some of these, obviously, these conversations that have progressed a little bit ways, what are the most exciting features that customers are really interested in? Obviously, you've mentioned fraud is a big problem. Is there anything else that they're really looking to, solve with verifiable credentials?
See, when we go
Passwordless.
and talk about a use case. Yeah, okay, go ahead, Hemant.
No, you go on. I'll
So when
follow
we go
you.
and talk to them, we can see when we present a use case, for example, passwordless login, right? They immediately understand. They have these employees who either get promoted, leave, there's a lot of changes, right? And these employees have to access 10, 50, 100 applications at a time. So they have to keep a log of their own passwords and login. Very difficult to do. Plus, if someone goes on leave, and he leaves his password and login as India's culture is with a friend, the friend can just leak the information right away, right? If there is no trust. So there are huge problems within an organization at the government and the financial institution level, that if verified credentials are implemented within the organization, then it will be like employees role-based access management, policy access management, for each employee. The employee leaves, immediately the role is given to someone else. It's all automated, so it doesn't take time. Right now, it takes about 15 days to a month to be able to do that. Once the financial institutions have done it for their employees and feel comfortable, they can do it the same thing for the account holders outside of the system, right? Right now, it takes a long time, and we have done a return on investment study for a bank of the size of the State Bank of India or some other large banks. There can be savings of 10 crore to 100 crore every year, which is a significant amount of money for any bank. And this is at the conservative level, right? If they implement the KYC process is going to be automated, the login is going to be automated, it's going to make everyone's life easy, and the fraud is eliminated. So basically, the someone who listens to us finds this very, very extremely useful. They get attracted to it, and they are at this point in time, after we have spoken to at least 10 to 20 large organizations, including financial institutions and government bank, they are trying to find out ways how to implement it within their organization, right? It's not necessarily they are not interested in technology. Once they know and understand, then they are trying to figure out internally on how to cut the red tape and the bureaucracy within the organization to get it done, which is very encouraging. So there is challenge, but they find it very attractive, and they are helping us get in their organization. Hemant?
Yeah, what Ajay said, is right. We have, like, people, if they have to adapt to a new technology, they have to see a urgency of need of it. So yes, the urgency I find in banks to introduce passwordless login, at least for their employees, because for customers, again, it is a regulatory process. So once they are able to do it for the employees, which is an internal matter, then it will be easier for them, a group of banks, to talk to the regulatory body, that is RBI. Why don't we adopt this system for the customers? Well, RBI's regulation is that they need to safeguard the customer's interest, that their money is safe in all the banks which are approved by RBI. So what I feel now, land record and passwordless login and KYC could be the most important use cases now, which, like for providing employee ID and all, may take some time, but for the login, wherever, because now all the banking operations are done online through, through the applications.
Yeah.
We have one of the banks who said, once you are in with us, we will take you to RBI, so RBI can direct the rest of the banks to implement verifiable credentials, which is very interesting. So we are just trying to break it into one, and I know that it will spread like fire with the rest of the financial institutions.
And we are also planning to do, and RBI wants the innovative technologies to have a regulatory sandbox environment, So once that is approved, then it becomes much easier also.
So
they select the technology. They don't allow all the technology to be in the regulatory sandbox environment here.
Okay, so when you say regulatory sandbox, is that basically they're doing a pilot, or what does that mean? Can you break that down for us?
Yeah, so it means is you're doing a pilot in our Indicio environment with RBI folks involved in it, so they can see firsthand how the technology works and what are the benefits. And if they are convinced, then they inform the financial institutions, here is one technology you can use for this purpose. So which we are very hopeful, hopefully, we'll make that transition soon into a sandbox within the RBI sandbox environment.
All right, sounds good. So it looks like we're coming to the end of our time here today, guys. I really appreciate you both taking the time to speak to us. Before we go, is there anything else about, your efforts in India that you'd like us to know? Or
We are also, have been talking at a discussion level with the responsible to maintain the birth and death registry through the central registry civil system. But like Ajay said, they feel no, we have made our birth certificate digital, so they feel it's secure. So we need to break that myth they have in their minds. We are even written to them. What we are talking about is that we are not touching your process in any way. The process is what you have been following. If a child is born, how you register through the paper model and through the digital way. We are trying to make this birth certificate, which you are all issuing as a digital certificate, you say, into a digital birth credential, and which can register all the milestones right from the birth of the child till he dies, which fulfills his health, his education journey, his career, so it's a, because it is related to the parliament and policy makers. We are in the process, and I think we are the only one who's trying to tell them about this technology. So, but if some results come out, then we'll be very happy to inform you.
Well, thank you both. It looks like that is the end of our time, or just about so. I appreciate you at home for watching. If you are interested in learning a bit more about verifiable credential technology, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, and we'll continue to bring you some more educational content. If you have any questions or specific topics, please be sure to leave a comment below, and we will be sure to read and address them. Thanks so much for watching.